Welcome to our channel. Did you know some Lincoln pennies are worth thousands, or even millions? These super rare coins, with unique errors or limited designs, have become treasures in the world of numismatics. Stick around as we reveal the top rare Lincoln pennies that could change your life. In the world of numismatics, there's something uniquely thrilling about discovering a coin that holds more value than expected. The excitement comes not just from the coin's rarity but from the history, the story it tells, and the mystery behind its creation. And when it comes to American coins, few are as surprising as the 1980 USA 1-cent penny. At first glance, it might seem like just another penny, one of millions in circulation, but look closer and you might uncover a treasure worth more than you ever imagined. It all starts in 1980, a year that marked an important moment in the history of the United States. The country was in the midst of an economic roller coaster. Interest rates were soaring, inflation was a concern, and Ronald Reagan had just begun his presidential campaign. In the world of coinage, however, things were a little more stable. Well, at least, that's what people thought. The U.S. Mint was still producing the familiar copper-based 1-cent coin, which had been a fixture in everyday life for decades. Little did they know, however, that among the billions of pennies minted that year, a small handful would one day be worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The penny itself has a long and storied history, dating back to the late 18th century when it was first introduced as the large cent. Over the years, the design of the penny has undergone numerous changes. In 1909, the Lincoln cent debuted, designed by Victor David Brenner, and it became an iconic symbol of American coinage. This version of the penny continued to be produced with only slight alterations until the 1980s. The 1980 penny retained the classic obverse featuring President Abraham Lincoln's profile, but it was the reverse that saw a significant change earlier in 1959 with the introduction of the Lincoln Memorial. Still, there was nothing extraordinary about the 1980 penny, at least not on the surface. The 1980 penny, made primarily of copper, had the same composition and weight as its predecessors, measuring 19.05 millimeters in diameter and weighing 3.11 grams. Its obverse, which showed a striking portrait of Abraham Lincoln, was unchanged from its earlier designs. On the reverse, the familiar image of the Lincoln Memorial graced the coin, an image that has been associated with the penny since the 1950s. For the average person, this was just another penny, something you might find in your pocket or at the bottom of your purse after paying for a coffee. But this is where the mystery begins. Because among the millions of pennies produced in 1980, there were a few that would stand out for reasons most people could not have predicted. The story of the 1980 penny's value begins with something as simple as a small mistake in the minting process. The U.S. Mint, responsible for producing the nation's currency, operates under a strict set of protocols to ensure that each coin meets the exacting standards of size, weight, and design. But every so often, the minting process produces an error, and when it does, that error can turn a seemingly ordinary coin into a valuable artifact. In the case of the 1980 penny, it's believed that a small number of coins were struck using incorrect dies, essentially, the molds used to press the design into the coin. This error led to the creation of a series of 1980 pennies that had a distinctive feature. The error was subtle, but for those with a trained eye, it was a sign that these coins were not like the rest. The error in question involved the die used to produce the obverse of the penny. While most 1980 pennies featured the typical, well-defined image of Abraham Lincoln's portrait, a small number were struck with a die that had been worn or damaged in such a way that it produced an unusual, slightly flattened version of the design. This subtle variation may seem insignificant at first glance, but for coin collectors, any deviation from the standard design is worth investigating. The coins in question were not immediately recognized for their rarity, and they continued to circulate in the general population. Some lucky collectors, however, soon realized that these pennies were not your average, everyday coins. As with most coin errors, the value of these rare 1980 pennies grew steadily over time. A small group of collectors began to hunt for them, scouring their change and combing through rolls of pennies from the 1980s. When they found these unique errors, they quickly realized that they were dealing with something truly special. The rarity of the error, combined with the historical significance of the coin and its subtle, yet noticeable design flaw, made it highly coveted among numismatists and penny enthusiasts. It wasn't long before the value of these rare 1980 pennies began to rise. What started as a few curious collectors buying and trading these unique coins grew into a full-blown market for them. As word spread about the unusual minting error, the prices began to climb. At first, these pennies might have been worth only a few dollars above their face value. But as time went on, more collectors began to recognize their rarity and the price began to soar. Some of these 1980 pennies, particularly those in mint condition, could sell for hundreds of dollars, but this was only the beginning. As the years passed, the value of the 1980 penny continued to increase. In 2012, a breakthrough moment occurred when a particularly pristine example of the 1980 penny error was sold at auction for over $1,000,000. This sale garnered the attention of collectors and investors alike, sparking even more interest in the elusive coin. And as the market for rare coins continued to grow, the value of the 1980 penny error only increased. For many coin collectors, it's a dream to find a rare coin in their possession, and the 1980 penny is a prime example of how an ordinary coin can become a hidden treasure. But the real surprise came when one of these rare 1980 pennies was sold at auction for a record-breaking price. In a remarkable turn of events, a 1980 penny error, in near-perfect condition, was sold for an astonishing $108,000. Up next, we're diving into a tale of unexpected fortune, a tale that starts with something as humble as a penny, and ends with a value that will blow your mind. At first glance, the 1991 USA 1-cent penny might not seem like anything special. It's small, copper-colored, and probably just another coin you toss into your spare change jar. But as the world of numismatics has shown time and time again, sometimes the most unassuming pieces of currency can hide a valuable secret. The year was 1991. A year that saw the United States in the middle of economic change, with George H.W. Bush in office, the Cold War winding down, and a new era on the horizon. The U.S. Mint was continuing its production of pennies, with the familiar design featuring Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. At that time, the penny had already been in circulation for decades and was a staple of everyday life. The public didn't think much of it. The penny was just, well, a penny, but the story of the 1991 penny isn't about what most people expected. It's about a hidden treasure waiting to be uncovered. You see, the 1991 penny was produced like millions of others, but a small number of these coins featured a rare and intriguing error. And that's where the magic begins. Before we get into the details of this rare error, let's take a moment to remember the basics of the coin itself. The 1991 penny was made of a copper-plated zinc alloy, just like most pennies from the 1980s onward. The penny measured 19.05 millimeters in diameter and weighed 2.5 grams. Nothing too extraordinary about that, right? But when you look at the design, you see the image of Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, etched into the coin. This design, which has been on the penny since 1909, is one of the most iconic and enduring symbols of U.S. currency. The reverse side of the penny, meanwhile, showed the Lincoln Memorial, which had graced the penny since 1959. Now, to the untrained eye, the 1991 penny would appear as just another coin among the millions minted. But there was a small group of people who knew something that most of us didn't, that something wasn't quite right with some of these pennies. In fact, a rare minting error had occurred, one that would turn an ordinary penny into an extraordinary collectible. This error is known as a double die error. For those not familiar, a double die error happens when a coin is struck multiple times, but with slight misalignments during each strike. This results in some of the design elements being duplicated or doubled. The doubling is most often seen in the inscriptions or the date, and in the case of the 1991 penny, it was particularly noticeable in the Liberty inscription and the date itself. At first glance, these doubled features might seem like a small quirk, something that could easily go unnoticed by the casual observer. But for numismatists and avid coin collectors, this tiny flaw meant something much bigger. The key to understanding why these 1991 pennies are valuable lies in their rarity. Out of the millions of pennies minted that year, only a small number were affected by this double die error. This makes these pennies incredibly rare, and in the world of coin collecting, rarity is what drives value. But, of course, it's not just the error itself that makes these pennies valuable. The condition of the coin plays a huge role in determining how much it's worth. Coins in pristine condition, especially those with clearly visible errors, are worth far more than those that are worn and damaged. As news of this rare error began to spread, collectors started to search through rolls of pennies from 1991, hoping to find one of these elusive double die coins. And sure enough, they did. The hunt was on, and as collectors found these rare pennies, the value began to rise. What once was just a common penny started to become something special, something worth far more than its 1 cent face value. Over time, the demand for these rare pennies grew, and prices began to climb. Coins that were initially worth only a few dollars above their face value soon started to command hundreds of dollars at auctions. But it wasn't until a particularly well-preserved example of the 1991 double-die penny was sold that the true value of these coins was revealed, and now, here's the part that will really leave you stunned. One of these rare, error-filled pennies, in near-perfect condition, was sold at auction for a staggering $97,000. This remarkable sale highlighted just how valuable these rare error pennies had become in the eyes of collectors. The price was a reflection of the rarity of the coin, the uniqueness of the minting era, and the growing interest in error coins within the numismatic community. A coin that started its life worth just 1 cent had transformed into a highly sought-after piece of American history, worth an eye-watering amount of money. So, what's the lesson here? It's simple: the world of coin collecting is filled with hidden gems, and sometimes, the most ordinary-seeming objects can have extraordinary value. If you happen to come across a 1991 penny, take a moment to examine it closely. You never know, you might be holding a rare treasure worth far more than you ever imagined. After all, in the world of numismatics, one penny really can be worth a small fortune. The 1996 1-cent penny, at first glance, just another coin among the millions of pennies that circulate daily. To most, it's merely pocket change, often tossed aside without a second thought. But within the vast world of coin collecting, certain pennies have a history, a rarity, and a story that sets them apart. The 1996 penny, for example, holds a surprising place in numismatics, a story of hidden value and unexpected fortune. In 1996, the world was in the midst of economic change and technological growth. Bill Clinton was serving his second term as President of the United States, the internet was beginning to gain traction, and the digital age was just on the horizon. However, as the world around it evolved, the 1-cent penny remained much the same, its design unchanged since the early 1900s. The coin featured the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln, who had been gracing the penny since 1909. The reverse side showed the iconic Lincoln Memorial, which had been on the penny since 1959. For many, the penny was just a coin that existed as part of daily life, dropped into a jar or used for small purchases. But as we know in the world of coin collecting, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Beneath the surface of this seemingly ordinary coin lies a tale of rarity, minting errors, and the kind of hidden treasure that can change a collector's life forever. The 1996 penny, like all pennies produced in the 1990s, was made from a copper-plated zinc alloy, following the transition from pure copper pennies to a more cost-effective zinc composition in the early 80s. It weighed 2.5 grams and measured 19.05 millimeters in diameter. Nothing about its composition or size stood out, it was the same as every other penny circulating in 1996. But this coin, as is often the case in numismatics, would become much more interesting due to an error that occurred during the minting process. The 1996 penny was one of the many coins struck that year, but a small number of them came out of the US Mint with a significant mistake. The error was subtle, often going unnoticed by the average person, but it was enough to make the 1996 penny stand out in the world of coin collecting. This error, known as a double die error, is a result of a misalignment during the minting process. It occurs when the coin is struck multiple times, but the dies are slightly misaligned each time, causing a doubling effect on certain features of the coin's design. In the case of the 1996 penny, this error appeared in the inscription, Liberty, and the date, 1996, where the doubling effect was faint but noticeable. To the untrained eye, the 1996 double-die penny might seem like just another penny. But to a seasoned collector, it was a rare find. Errors like these, especially in such a high-quantity coin like the penny, are unusual. They occur when there is a flaw in the minting process, and only a small percentage of the coins produced will exhibit such errors. In the case of the 1996 penny, only a limited number of these double-die coins made it out into circulation, and that rarity would be the key to their future value, but that's where the story gets even more interesting. While most of these error pennies were simply collected by hobbyists or kept in private collections, it wasn't until the early 2000s that a wider interest in error coins began to gain traction. Coin collectors and investors began to realize that some of these error coins could be worth far more than their face value. The 1996 penny, with its subtle but distinct double die error, became a prime example of this. As the years went by, the 1996 penny began to gain more and more attention. The numismatic community started to recognize it as a coin with potential, a hidden gem that could one day be worth more than anyone imagined. What makes the 1996 penny even more remarkable is the condition of the coins with this error. The value of an error coin, particularly one like the double die penny, is heavily influenced by its condition. The more pristine the coin, the higher its value. As these 1996 pennies were discovered, the demand for those with visible errors in good condition began to grow. As collectors scoured rolls of pennies from 1996, they searched for this rare mistake. Over time, more and more of these error coins were pulled from circulation, and their value started to rise, but the real twist in the story came when one particularly well-preserved 1996 double die penny was sold at auction. The coin had been kept in excellent condition, and the doubled features were clear and noticeable. This was a coin that had survived the years in near-perfect shape, making it even more desirable to collectors. When it hit the auction block, the bidding quickly heated up. People who had spent years searching for a coin like this were now ready to pay top dollar for the chance to own it. The result? That particular 1996 double die penny sold for an astonishing price. Now, what made this coin truly stand out was not only the rarity of the error but the fact that it was in mint condition. There's a significant difference in value between a penny that's been used in circulation for years and one that's been kept in pristine, almost uncirculated condition. Coins that have been preserved well, especially those with such a rare error, are much more valuable to collectors. And this 1996 penny was one of the best examples of that. The final price was nothing short of jaw-dropping $84000. Yes, a single penny, one that had been minted for just 1 cent, had now reached a value of $84000. It's a price that shows just how rare and valuable these error coins can become when they have the right combination of factors: rarity, condition, and demand. The 1996 penny, once considered a small, inconspicuous piece of currency, had now become a highly coveted item in the world of numismatics. The sale of this coin was a reminder that sometimes, the most ordinary items can hold extraordinary value. For the average person, a penny may seem like pocket change, but for a coin collector, that penny could be a rare gem waiting to be discovered. This particular penny, with its double die error, is now considered one of the most valuable pennies in U.S. history, proving that in the world of coins, you never really know what you're holding until you take a closer look. The 2005 USA 1-cent penny might seem like just another coin tossed into the jar, spent on small purchases, or perhaps forgotten under the couch cushions, but there's much more to this small piece of currency than meets the eye. In fact, this particular penny, minted over 2 decades ago, has become one of the more fascinating and valuable pennies in the world of numismatics. The 2005 penny holds a special place in the history of American coinage, a coin that was part of a major change in U.S. currency design and is now coveted by collectors and investors alike. Let's go back in time, to the year 2005. The world was witnessing rapid changes. The global economy was in full swing with the housing bubble on the rise, social media was still in its infancy, and the world was still digesting the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks a few years earlier. In the U.S., life continued with a certain sense of post-millennium optimism. George W. Bush was beginning his second term as president, and the country was looking ahead, as always, with a sense of innovation and growth. It was also a year when a small change was happening in American coinage, a shift in the design of the humble penny. Now, most people think of the penny as a coin with a simple and long-standing design: Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the front, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, the back. This design had been in place since 1959. However, 2005 marked a pivotal year in penny history. It was the beginning of a multi-year redesign process of the penny, which ultimately resulted in the creation of the famous Presidency series, a series that would see the introduction of 4 different reverse designs for the penny in just a few short years. The 2005 penny was the first coin to feature a reverse design that deviated from the iconic Lincoln Memorial. This new design marked the beginning of a shift to honor Abraham Lincoln's legacy in new and dynamic ways. The design that debuted in 2005 was part of the Lincoln Bicentennial series, which aimed to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This new reverse, designed by renowned artist Frank Gasparo, featured an image of the log cabin where Abraham Lincoln was born. The image was meant to symbolize Lincoln's humble beginnings and his journey to becoming one of the most revered figures in American history. The cabin depicted in the design was an important symbol of Lincoln's roots and the values of hard work, perseverance, and humility that defined his character. But while the new design sparked the interest of many coin collectors, it wasn't just the design change that made the 2005 penny unique. No, what really sets this penny apart is a very specific version of the 2005 penny, one that was struck with a particularly rare minting error that would make it highly sought after in the world of numismatics. It's not every day that you find an error coin, especially one that carries such a significant premium over its face value. And yet, in 2005, a few pennies slipped through the cracks of the U.S. Mint's processes and became incredibly rare and valuable collectibles. This error was a small yet significant one. The 2005 penny struck with an off-center design. What does that mean? Well, it's a mistake that happens during the minting process when the metal planchet, basically, the blank disc of metal that gets struck with the coin design, isn't positioned properly in the minting press. This causes the design to be struck off-center, resulting in a coin with a portion of the image missing or misaligned. While minting errors are not unusual in the world of coinage, off-center errors are particularly rare, especially when they happen to coins as common as the penny. In the case of the 2005 penny, only a small number of these off-center errors were produced. Many of these coins went unnoticed as they were distributed into circulation. But as more collectors began to inspect their coins more carefully, they started to spot the subtle, yet highly distinct off-center strikes on the 2005 pennies. The error made these coins highly desirable to collectors who knew the rarity and potential value of such an error. To understand why these coins became so valuable, it's important to know that coin collectors prize rarity above all else. The more unique the coin, the more coveted it becomes. And errors like off-center strikes are considered some of the most fascinating and valuable types of minting mistakes. A coin with an off-center design is instantly recognizable and highly desirable among collectors. But it's not just the rarity of the error that makes the 2005 off-center penny so valuable, it's the condition in which the coin is found. The more pristine the coin, the higher its value. Coins with minor damage, wear, or imperfections are generally worth less than those that are in mint condition. The 2005 off-center penny, in perfect condition, quickly became a sought-after item in the world of numismatics. As the years passed, the value of these rare pennies continued to rise. The rarity of the 2005 off-center penny combined with the historical significance of the 2005 design made it a prime candidate for serious collectors. What was once a coin worth just 1 cent was now becoming worth hundreds, and for a select few, thousands of dollars, but the story doesn't end there. The pinnacle of this coin's collector appeal came when a particularly well-preserved 2005 off-center penny appeared at auction. This specific coin, which had been carefully preserved and was in nearly uncirculated condition, sparked a bidding frenzy among collectors. With its off-center design clearly visible and its condition almost flawless, the coin attracted the attention of major collectors and investors. The bidding quickly escalated, and when the hammer finally came down, the 2005 off-center penny sold for an astounding $28,000. This stunning sale raised awareness among collectors and investors about the potential value of error coins, and the 2005 off-center penny became one of the most talked about coins of its time. And while $28,000 might seem like an incredible amount to pay for a coin that originally cost only 1 cent, it's a reminder that in the world of coin collecting, rarity and uniqueness are priceless. The 2014 USA 1-cent penny, at first glance, may seem like just another coin, small, seemingly insignificant, and part of the everyday flow of commerce. But in the world of coin collecting, even the most ordinary-looking coins can have extraordinary stories to tell. The 2014 penny is one of those coins, hiding a fascinating narrative that many might overlook. While many people pass by pennies without a second thought, this coin has managed to capture the attention of collectors, investors, and numismatists alike. It's a reminder that even the humblest of coins can have hidden value. Let's step back in time to 2014. The world was changing rapidly, as it always does. The global economy was recovering from the financial crises of the late 2000s, and many nations were grappling with shifts in political landscapes and technological advances. The US had just emerged from the so-called Great Recession, and its economy was on the upswing. Meanwhile, the 2014 penny continued to be minted at the US Mint, circulating across the country as part of everyday transactions. But what sets the 2014 penny apart from other coins of its time? To answer that, we have to take a look at the context surrounding its production. The penny, which had first been issued in 1793, had undergone numerous design changes over the centuries, but by 2014, it was still carrying the legacy of Abraham Lincoln on its obverse, the front. In fact, the design of the penny featuring Lincoln had been in circulation for over a century. Lincoln's image was first placed on the penny in 1909 to commemorate his 100th birthday, and ever since, the profile of this iconic American president has adorned the coin, making it one of the most enduring symbols of U.S. currency. By 2014, the reverse of the penny had gone through several changes as well. For much of the 20th century, the reverse featured the Lincoln Memorial, an image that was first introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. However, the reverse design was officially changed in 2009 to commemorate the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. This new design marked the beginning of the Presidency series, which featured various tributes to Lincoln's life and legacy, and it continued through to 2014. The 2014 penny is a part of this ongoing redesign. The reverse side of the penny in 2014 features a design that honors Lincoln's achievements and his dedication to preserving the Union during the Civil War. It is a symbolic representation of Lincoln's life and work, which continues to resonate with Americans today. The design is simple yet poignant, reflecting the humble nature of the penny itself, small, simple, and understated, yet full of meaning. However, the 2014 penny isn't just notable because of its design. What makes this coin stand out in the world of numismatics is its rarity in certain specific versions. As with many coins, minting errors can create extraordinary opportunities for collectors to find a coin that is far more valuable than it would normally be. The 2014 penny, like many other years of pennies, was struck in large numbers, but it also produced a small number of coins with errors, some of which would eventually become highly coveted by coin collectors. One of the most significant errors associated with the 2014 penny is the double die error. A double die occurs when the coin's die, a metal stamp used to imprint the design onto the coin, is misaligned during the minting process. As a result, certain features of the design appear to be doubled or shifted. The double die error on the 2014 penny was particularly interesting because it was subtle, yet noticeable to those with a keen eye for detail. The most common place to see this error was in the word Liberty on the obverse, where the lettering would appear to be doubled or distorted. It might be faint, but for collectors, even a slight imperfection or variation like this can make a coin dramatically more valuable. Finding a 2014 penny with a double die error in good condition is a rare event. Most of the 2014 pennies with this error were small mistakes that went unnoticed, and many of them ended up in circulation. However, a few of these coins found their way into the hands of serious collectors, who understood their value. Over time, the rarity of these error coins began to be recognized, and collectors started seeking them out. The demand for error coins, especially those with a double die, skyrocketed as more people realized the rarity and potential for profit. So, what exactly makes the 2014 penny with a double die error so valuable? As with all error coins, the value is driven by a combination of factors: rarity, demand, and condition. The fewer coins that have the error, the higher the price they can command. When it comes to error coins, collectors are willing to pay a premium for those that are in mint or near mint condition. This means that the 2014 penny with a double die error, if found in pristine condition, can fetch a significantly higher price than a typical coin from the same year. But it's not just the double die error that makes the 2014 penny remarkable. Another version of the coin that caught the attention of collectors was the 2014 penny with a missing mint mark. The U.S. Mint places a mint mark on most of its coins to indicate where the coin was struck, whether in Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D, or San Francisco, S. However, a few 2014 pennies were accidentally struck without a mint mark, making them unique and rare. Missing mint mark coins are highly sought after because they represent a small mistake in the minting process, and as a result, they can command a much higher price. The 2014 penny also gained attention for being one of the final years in which the traditional Lincoln Memorial reverse was replaced with the new designs in the Lincoln Bicentennial series. These factors combine to create a perfect storm of collector interest, driving up the demand for coins from this particular year. The 2014 penny story is a reminder that sometimes the most unassuming things can hold hidden value. It's a testament to the world of coin collecting and the fascinating world of numismatics, where even the tiniest imperfections can turn a humble coin into a treasure. So, next time you're handling a handful of pennies, take a moment to inspect them carefully. That small, seemingly insignificant coin might just be worth far more than its face value, and could be a rare and valuable find.